What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV show, Eric Von Doniken, as he returns to Manchester after an amazing response to his last presentation. David Childress will guide you through the evidence left behind. Mike Barrow will take you to other worlds, where Nick Pope will present the real X-Files. Paula Harris will share incredible testimonies. It's time to believe and raise consciousness. Join like-minded souls on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018 for Awakening. What do you believe?
Hi guys, and welcome to another edition of The Moore Show. I'm your host, Kevin Moore, and for this next hour I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Ragani Bagel. Now I met Ragani whilst filming my documentary They Call Us Channelers in the United States. Now just to give you a bit of background on Ragani, she is certified by the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine, licensed by the state of Wisconsin. Now she has nearly 2 decades of experience in acupuncture and over 3 decades of experience and training in yoga, meditation and stress techniques. Now in her music career, Ragani is an award-winning production and recording artist and leads Milwaukee's Kirtan with Ragani, one of the largest independent ongoing Kirtan yoga chant scenes in the nation. Enjoy my interview with Ragani. I'm joined here with Ragani. Now Ragani, just your last name is?
Beagle.
Ragani Beagle, and you've so graciously come onto the documentary to give us your input, well the channeled input into music. So this is looking at music from a channeled perspective, and that was a fascinating interview. That was fascinating at the end.
Thank you, and yes,
yeah,
the questions and the things led to quite an interesting place.
They did. Oh God, I did not expect it to go there. Do you know that? Did you expect to bring that stuff out?
I didn't. I didn't.
No.
I didn't expect you would bring it out.
Right. But I wasn't gonna do that. But you brought it out.
Well, there was a pause, and then it came out.
Right. And I think what we're talking about here, we're going to get into in a bit. But the subjects that Ragani has brought out in this documentary were quite in alignment with everything that's been coming into the other channelers that are coming into They Call Us Channelers. And it was just mind-bending, actually, when that part came in, when you talked about that this isn't the only life, the only time you've lived this one life. You've lived this life many times.
Right.
That's the feeling that this work has taken you into.
Right.
Incredible. That was incredible. And that's what's come out on a lot of these interviews as well for the documentary.
Well, that's really incredible to hear that when you said that, because I had no idea that that's what was going on with you when I shared that. And so that was really interesting to hear you say that that's the theme coming out, or there's some thread with that.
That's the theme coming out. So, okay, let's take this all the way back then. Let's start again, right? As into where this all started for you and what this is. So, let's start with the question, what is Kirtan?
That's a big question,
That's
right?
a big question,
Because there's no elevator speech for Kirtan.
Yeah.
We'd like to say that Kirtan is a call and response form of music where people participate, and it's one that brings you into the center of your heart as opposed to one that's meant for entertainment. That's probably the best way to describe it. It could come in different genres, different language. I use Sanskrit when we do our Kirtan. But it's something that is meant to be more of a sacred practice than just a music practice.
Yes, and many people can do Kirtan as well, don't they? Many people do practice Kirtan themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
You mean in terms of leading it?
Oh, yeah,
participating,
leading it,
singing?
yes,
leading it, and
yeah.
all the different means.
Yeah.
There's lots of people that will come to Kirtan, then get inspired to go lead their own Kirtan. So that happens a lot.
How many times have you seen that happen? Many with your...
A lot,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, when we started the Kirtan here in Milwaukee, there were no other Kirtan people leading Kirtan, and now there's a lot of them. I'm going to one tonight.
Right, it's incredible. Well, they're one of your band members, aren't they? You're going to tonight?
No, actually, it's a celebration of one of the band members, but it's others that are leading the
That are
Kirtan.
leading the Kirtan, right? Amazing, amazing. Okay, so just taking this all back then, let's just go to childhood, right? Let's start back there, right? I know, right? But there was nothing in the family where there was no one that had any extrasensory perception, no one that was psychic.
Not as such.
No,
Not
it
as
just didn't
such.
exist. Yeah. So your parents started getting into following a yogi. Was that the right
They
word?
did. My
Yeah.
mom was involved with homeopathy, and the man she was studying with said, you should meet this teacher who was the one who was teaching the yoga. And so she got involved with yoga and started teaching yoga and having yoga books around the house and things like that. So that's how it started. And then later took me to some yoga classes. That's where I heard the first time I heard like a mantra or kirtan. It wasn't exactly call and response. Everybody was singing together. But at that same woman's house, we went, and I went to babysit her daughter, and they were doing a little kirtan in a back room. And that's the first time I heard kirtan.
Wow. Okay, and let's take us to that time when your parents went to go see a yogi. This was in a bookshop in downtown Chicago, and you sort of asked a question to yourself out loud in your head about, is this phenomenon real in a sense, and how you proved it to yourself.
Well, I think I knew he was extraordinary. I had read a few little articles, about him that were around our house, but I think when we were there, it was the children were not allowed to go down to the workshops or the lectures or whatever. And so my parents went down, and I was waiting for him to come. And the bookstore was dark, so I was standing inside inside where the card catalog was. And I was standing behind it thinking, if he is who I think he might be, he should know I'm wanting to meet him. And I often did that. I often would test him that way and see if he could tell what I was thinking. And And he came in, and sure enough, he came around and saw me and said something, stepped into the bookstore, and there was nobody else there. So he looked at me, he said something, and I was so blown away by it that I don't remember what he said.
Right.
And then he went back and went downstairs.
What did that do for you at that time? Because then pretty quickly after, not quickly after that, the pursuing years, you were getting more into the idea of studying this subject as well.
I did. That really... that was a mark. That night was really intriguing to me, the fact that somebody actually could hear that and be sensitive enough to perceive what I was feeling or thinking. And at that point, I decided I wanted to study with somebody like that. I wanted to know what that was, and I wanted to find something that felt like I could learn from that and see, how to integrate that into my life. And I remember the first time I went out to study with him, and it was a congress, international congress that they had. And I've described it often like it felt like I was picking up where I left off somewhere. It felt very familiar to me, and it was a time that I wanted to keep going back to.
Wow. And your parents were quite happy that you'd gone down this road?
They were. Unlike
Yeah.
probably other parents, they were probably a little more hippie. We had Birkenstocks we wore. We were vegetarians before it was cool to be vegetarian. So I think they were okay with that. And they just felt
Yeah.
it was part of, they thought it was a really neat opportunity because of my age. And I didn't have, job and responsibilities and family and stuff like that, that I could really go and dedicate myself. In fact, it was my mom who suggested one summer when I was at the cottage, and I said, I don't think I want to do soccer camp anymore, because I was doing soccer camp in the summers.
Right.
And she said, well, why don't you consider going out to the Himalayan Institute? It was where we had done a congress before, the year before. And she said they have, like self-transformation programs. You could go out for a month and do that instead. So that was the beginning of 11 summers of going out there.
Wow, your parents were really cutting edge in that sense. But then when they went to see the yogi back in that story about the bookstore, they was already on their course then, weren't they, to explore this side of them?
My mom certainly was, and my dad was kind of, following along. I think he eventually came out when I was out at the ashram, as they call it, the yoga center out in Pennsylvania. He came out at one point, I think a few years after I was there, so he was slower to come out to it, but he had tried homeopathy and found it was pretty amazing, and he was now vegetarian. So there were a lot of things that were a fit for him too. So, yeah.
Yeah, because do you find that in your kirtans there are more men coming to the kirtans nowadays?
Much more than before. Back in the 80s when we were doing it, I used to say it was, except when we were at the yoga centers out in Honesdale, where there were a lot of different crowds of people coming. When I was in Chicago doing them, it was maybe, women in their 20-somethings who kind of were already doing yoga, maybe a token male or two. And now at our events, I look out and it looks pretty even. I mean, I don't see, the typical kind of people coming. In fact, we took a poll one time because we found there was such a range of different religions and backgrounds. I remember one time we were doing a kirtan in the back of the room. There were 3 uniformed men that came in, and I thought, and then there was a police officer. I thought I must be in trouble, and they started dancing then at the end. So
that's cool.
It's a lot of different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just keeping with your backstory here as well. Then, all right. So, did you get a conventional job? I think you did some conventional studying.
I did. I went to graduate school, got my degree in psychology, and then went and got my degree in acupuncture. And so my background is I've got my doctorate in psychology, and I don't advertise that anymore, but I use a lot of the tools from psychology that I've learned from the Eastern psychology. I also took a year of the master's course out in Pennsylvania for Eastern psychology.
Do you think absolutely. Do you think the psychology has helped you ground yourself? Because in this work, it can be pretty much out there sometimes, can't it? In what information comes through you sometimes. Yeah. Do you think it's really helped to give you a grounding basis with what you're doing?
I think it validifies what I do for other people, maybe. The grounding for me came from the time I spent with my teacher. He seemed always to be grounded to me. And it was a lesson for me of how to do the spirituality in the world and not to feel like I was losing my focus or losing myself. So that was the biggest lesson in grounding for me, was to spend time with somebody like that.
Okay, I do want to get back into the psychology, and we will. So just moving this story on then. Where did the kirtan come into all this? So you started your acupuncture work first, or the kirtan first?
The kirtan. Yeah, because when I was in 8th grade, I heard it in this woman's home, and then when I was 16 out at the Himalayan Institute, we would do kirtan there, and many times the woman leading it would not have it or would cancel it for whatever reason. So I started going up to this little temple and having the kirtan up there. And that became kind of the desire I had, was to lead more kirtan. So when I was back, actually my teacher left his body in 96. So I didn't do kirtan for a while after that. I didn't do any music until 2000 or 2001, and then started the kirtan.
And that could have been if you had someone that was meant a lot to you in your kirtan band, and they had left as well, passed on. That would have affected you just as much.
It could have.
Yeah.
It depends, I guess. For me, the teacher I had was such a thread for my entire life in the yoga, and he was, I was his assistant for a long time, and so it was
Yeah.
a very kind of close relation. Anybody would
Yeah.
say, with the relationship that they had with him, they felt like it was such a close connection they had. That was
Yeah.
just how he was. And so when he left his body, it was, I guess it was a shock on some level. I thought he would never leave. And then when I realized he wasn't actually gone, he was still here,
Right.
then things started to change a little bit again.
And well, yeah. So was that after your healing period? Was it when?
I back up because it started right after he left his body, where I started having dreams that he would show up and then he would say, Shh, like, don't tell anybody, I'm still here.
Right.
And then I'd be looking around saying, well, there's people right outside the door that would love to see you. And he said, no, don't tell them I'm still here. And what was interesting is it was a dream, but at the same time, I felt like what he was doing, that he used to say, whenever I show up in a dream, it's really me. It's not your imagination. So I felt what he was doing was showing me that his death here was a hoax.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't what people would normally think, oh, in
Yeah.
a dream, oh, he must still be real in the dream. I
Yeah.
said, no, I realized he faked his death here so that people would think he was gone and then go about their way. And he was still here. And that was the epiphany I had from the dreams, night after night after night. I mean, repeatedly for ongoing.
Do you think you was
for
holding on
years.
to him, and that was the reflection that you were holding on to him a bit?
No, I felt like he was actually there.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
felt like the memory of him was not him being present when he would tell me things in the dream, and I'd
Yeah.
wake up and say, well, that's still
So
who
this
he
was then all building your understanding, because there must have been a place and a start where your spirituality started to build up, your understanding of what is this, you're trying to generate your own truth on this and being comfortable with that. That was part of that process.
With him, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, I think the thing with him that was most remarkable was that the idea that somebody was witnessing me all the time, that they could see the thoughts, they could see the past, present, future of me all the time was remarkable. And it took a little getting used to.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point I could be completely honest with myself about everything. Because if everything could be seen by another who could be okay with me and still love me,
Yes.
it was remarkable to feel that, to feel
The
that
freedom. Yeah.
you can be okay with everything that you've ever experienced and that you've done or seen or thought. And I think for a lot of people that feels like something hidden that they feel shame about, that they want to hide when there's something that goes through their mind or something they've experienced or something they didn't wish they wouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And to live with somebody who it was already out there and it was available was pretty remarkable.
So just moving this on to the Kirtan, get the words right?
Close enough.
What is, okay, so for someone that doesn't know too much about it, just explain just as well just how it works, so what are the words, how, what would you expect how would you participate in something like that? How do you lead it?
So people come into a room and there's a band that we orchestrate that I'll lead because I'm leading the Kirtan, and we'll call out a phrase in Sanskrit. And it might be a phrase about the light within or whatever it is. And we'll call it out like Om Namashivaya, some people have heard. And we'll sing it, though, in a melodious kind of way. And then everybody who's come to participate then sings it back. And it's done in a call-response style. And as we go, the style that we have is we tend to speed up and go faster and faster. And the melody sometimes varies, the tone, the beat, things will vary as it increases. It's kind of like... I've described it as getting on a train. It starts slow and it speeds up and then we slow down at the end. I've also described it as a car wash because I say people go through that and they come out and they're kind of clean. They feel like, wow, something happened. I feel really different after that.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. So just moving on with your work, then we'll tie it back in. So
Good job.
Yeah, cheers. So the acupuncture work that you do, that's on top of the kirtans that you're running as well. And then I think you mentioned something in the interview previously about being a mentor, or there was some sort
Well,
of...
for some of the people doing kirtan and stuff, I've helped them just, find their authenticity and how to lead the kirtan that they want to lead. Because many people will come into the kirtan, as we said earlier, and they'll be inspired and want to go home and do it themselves or want to start their own band or groups. And how do you do that when you feel that, wow, this is really new and I don't really feel like I have any like authority to do this, and how do I
Right.
find that? And so part of it for me is helping people find where their authenticity is, what it is that drew them to that,
Yes.
that makes it real and genuine for them, so they can do that themselves and find their own path.
Okay, now and with the acupuncture as well, that's something that you do in person. But is that something? I don't know too much about acupuncture, but is there anything remotely done with that as well that you can do?
With the acupuncture, not necessarily, because
healing?
you'd put the
The
needles in.
Yeah. But there was something in my head.
Oh,
that
I
was
use
thinking,
a flying needle technique, far away.
Yeah. No, but there was something that was the remote that you did as well, healing remote, some remote
There
healing.
is. It's kind of a secret, though.
Oh, is
because
it? Where am I getting this from then?
Okay, so I used to sit in my meditation in the morning, and after I was done, I'd say, okay, anybody that needs help, come.
Yeah.
And different people I would feel them or see their face in front of me, and they would show me what they needed help with. And then I would just do energy work with them at that point. And interestingly enough, I would run into some of these people later and find out,
Yeah.
well, in fact, what an interesting thing that had an effect on them, or something happened. And so I started doing more work, but it's not something I charge for or anything that I publicize. I really just do it as I'm inspired with people from a distance when I feel something, because as you know, thoughts are real and they travel, and the moment something comes through my mind, I think, okay, someone's thinking something, or they're thinking about me. And so then I try to attend to that.
Okay. So your website is?
Raganiworld.com, Ragani.
Perfect. Okay, well, that's going on the lower thirds as we
That's
speak.
for the Kirtan.
That's for the Kirtan.
The acupuncture one is different. At some point, I'll probably merge them.
Okay.
The acupuncture is holisticacupuncturetherapy.com.
Okay, well, we're putting both on the screen right now. They've been coming up as well. But the Kirtan, now that's just you've started doing your own albums now as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing that wasn't something that was ever on the agenda too much, was it?
Well, I had the thought of it when I went to India 91, 92, and I felt I had come home when I was there as well. I thought I found where I need to be. And then I had to come back to the States to get my degree. And I decided I also came back to the States to produce a CD of music, not realizing that once I started, I'd probably produce more and then more and more. But that's kind of how it started. And so I've been doing CDs since then, and singles and whatnot.
And obviously you've got your YouTube channel now. We'll link the YouTube channel in the description of this video as well. And you've got one of your latest tracks on. You've got all your latest. You've got all your newish ones on there, haven't you?
There's a lot of ones on YouTube. Most of the YouTube ones are live, and then there's a few that are recorded tracks from like CD Baby that they've put up.
Right. Of course, you've got your latest music video on there as well.
Yes, the Peace Prayer.
The Peace Prayer, yeah, and that's incorporating, hip hop rap.
It is.
Yeah,
with Sanskrit music.
Yeah,
it was meant to be kind of to cut through into more of a modern world of feel. And when the song was written, it was written all in Sanskrit. And one of the people that I have come in, her name's Kata. I have one of the listeners that will listen to the music and just give me feedback, pretty honest. This sucks, this is good, change that, whatever. And she said, you need a rapper. And I laughed, and she laughed because she thought, oh, she'll never do that. She's never done that before. And she laughed. And I kept listening to it, and that's all I could hear from that point on was, I need a rapper. So I need to come up with some words. And the seeing all the world as divine was kind of the theme that came through that, because that was a phrase that had gone through my head for a number of years. I thought, I'm going to put that in a song.
It's really good. And,
Thank you.
And it just works really well. And we're just playing a bit just right now on the screen. And with that just goes to prove as well that, Kirtan is not just one type of way of doing the music, with just the sort of instruments that you've been using in your live events. You can also incorporate new styles in there, so it could be any type of music, couldn't it, mixed with Kirtan?
Right. With this particular one, I wouldn't call this Kirtan because it's not so much call and response. I'm singing to myself, sort of.
Okay.
I do have a little bit of response, but I've taken a lot of liberties. I make it more of what I call the genre mantra beat. And I have other songs I put in there where I use mantras and make it the sacred lyrics, but also have something that's more upbeat. Yeah. But yes, Kirtan can have all those. It can have any genre of music people can imagine.
Yeah, it would have been great to see some of the instruments, but we can't do that right now. But what are some of the instruments that are sort of foundational instruments in doing Kirtan?
In India, they use tabla, tampura, harmonium. Those are some of the ones that are more classic for the Kirtan. And then, of course, in the West, we add anything else you want, or any other place that people might bring instruments in, whether it's harmonica or, bass guitar,
whatever it
all
may
kinds
be.
of stuff, flute.
Okay, that's cool. And so just so that, just makes my own mind just understand how it all works as well, right? And also, thank you so much as well for allowing us to use your music for the documentary.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Another reason why we're connected as well. Yeah,
it's totally awesome. It's actually inspiring me to get more music done, get this stuff completed.
I've just heard some of your new stuff that you've said. Would you like to use that? And I'm like, whoa! Once we figured out what film it might have been from, that's perfect.
Absolutely.
That's
I'm
so
honored.
cool, man, to have that music. And there's more that you're now... You're working on?
Same, yes. Yeah? Yep, see, now I'm inspired. I got to get it done. I've got to crank out.
And I think we do have to thank someone here for connecting us as well, Courtney Amerson.
Courtney.
Yeah, she did connect us. And she's actually connected a few people on this as well. And it's taught me just sometimes
Courtney.
just to she's a great person. It taught me just to go with it sometimes. When things come in your way, there's a reason for that and to flow. Otherwise, if I'd resisted it, right, we wouldn't be doing this and I wouldn't have the soundtrack and everything else. So, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Following that inspiration sometimes.
She's a real networker. She's connected so many people, man, and I just love her. I love her energy. I love everything. She's just such a sweetheart.
And
I love her.
She's going to be on this documentary, and I think you also inspired her to do the Kirtan as well. So just as someone else that your work has touched as well, and I bet there's many lives that you've touched. And let's just move on Dan to the lives that you have touched. I mean, there would have been many people that would have written to you in the past that would have said, I don't know, whatever the circumstances, and it healed my pet. This touched me at a moment when I lost someone. These must be stories that there's,
They are, and they're one of the most amazing things that I could ever imagine with doing this music. I took a break for a number of years and was writing music for film and TV. And while it was fun to write for the Oprah show and do other stuff like that, and it's nice to put on your resume, in the end, it was this feedback loop that you get that completes the circle. When you put music out on film and TV, nobody knows whose it was, or maybe on film if it's at the credits at the end, but TV stuff, most people didn't know whose music was whose.
Yeah.
And yet when you put an album out as an artist with your own music and your own love in that, and somebody hears it and they're inspired to pick up a pen, or these days pick up their cell phone and send you a little message back about how it touched them. And I can imagine that of the ones that I've heard from, there's probably another 10 that I've never heard from, that just something happened, a little story that, you never hear. And I realize from the artist side now, when I feel that with another artist, I'll try to reach out and send something to them, because even if they don't know anything about who I am, I know it means something to receive that, because it completes the circle.
It really does,
of why you put it out to touch people.
It really does. So nowadays you're not sort of keeping the letters. You just sort of let them touch your heart in a sense.
I do. I keep them in a folder. They're in a digital folder on my email, but I don't print them off, and I don't compile them like I used to. There was just a stack of stuff every time I'd print off a sheet. Every time somebody would send something, I was like, "That's really neat," and I had this big folder that was crazy after a couple of years. So I thought I just keep it in a digital file.
That's beautiful. So and you can watch this remotely as well, can't you? And it still works.
You can, It's that's the beauty of it. Is people think we're just going to watch it and it's nice because you're streaming it on a little screen or something, or put it on a bigger screen. But part of what happens when we're doing this live event and we're getting this energy going is that you're creating a groove and a pattern in the mind that allows the mind to start becoming still. So it's this back and forth of the music, back and forth. It quiets the mind. And the moment that happens, something bigger starts to unfold. And people feel they're connected to something greater. They start to feel their heart expand. They feel the thoughts of other people that they love coming in. They'll say, I thought of someone. And what do you know? I went back to my car and there's a text from that person. Because when we have not all the waves in our mind, we can pick those things up, much like my teacher used to do.
Yes.
His mind was very different. It was in control of himself. And so he could pick up thoughts when things would come through from us. Yeah. So when people watch the streaming video, it's, it's really nice to have it and hear it and this and that. But what you got to realize is this is real. This is actually sending that energy through wherever it's playing, and that sound wave is going into your home now. That's affecting your thoughts and the people around you and the things that are going on with you too. So we are connecting each other in a bigger way, so that when when we do the live kirtan, it's not just us doing it and it's other people are watching. They're
Yeah.
now part of that. So the thoughts that we have and the thoughts that they have, even as they're watching, start to converge, and we start to find, wow, there's points of light that we're actually connecting, and it's not just some new age figment of imagination.
No, and that's quite incredible when you see it work on that. But you've, the proof with yourself is that you've seen it, you've felt it. You know that the stories that have come through for you are true. That someone could be on the other side watching it, and how it's affecting them as though they're there.
Right.
So I think the live stream is a really cool thing to do, and you've grown this kirtan from just maybe a few people turning up. And having to really fight with yourself. Is this really my purpose? Is this really what I want to do? And you've had to break through that fear. And now a lot of people are turning up, aren't they?
Well, actually, the point of breakthrough was when I gave up and I told my teacher, you said that I was supposed to be doing it, so you figure it out and let me know when it's ready. And that's when I got a call and it started up. So my decision, though, at that point was, I'm responsible for the band and whatever's going on behind these little fairy lights. We put out these little, sparkly lights. The band sits behind that, and I'm responsible to make sure they're there and that they know what we're doing and that we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Whatever happens on the other side, as far as who comes, what's going on, what their experience is, people come up and say, oh, I'm not so much into it, or I don't know if it's right for me, or I hated it,
I've
or
heard it all before,
whatever, whatever, or oh my God, I loved it, it changed my life. It's all of that. It's nice to hear everything, but I'm not in charge of what happens on the other side of those lights. So after that experience, I feel free. I can do the kirtan. And
when did you
observe it.
learn to let go then? I mean, when did that come?
That point when I decided I was no longer going to do the kirtan, and I told him he needs to figure it out.
Oh, and that's when options came to you to
Right.
say, actually, look, we've got a space available here.
And then I decided, okay, that sounds good. We went, checked the space out, and so I came back and sat with my teacher. I said, okay, now I need a bass player.
And then the bass player turns up.
Well, the bass player, I went to Summerfest and
Right.
happened to be watching this guy on stage. I was like, I'd like someone just like him, because I thought I need to get an image in my mind of what I want them to look like or feel like.
Yeah.
Just like him. I want someone just like him. And long story short, he's now in my band. That exact same guy that was
That's
in Summerfest
incredible.
is in my band.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And I didn't know him at the time at all.
Right. Absolutely. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And actually, just going back to that part of when you're taking part in something like this, again, just emphasizing, without sounding like a broken record, that change in experience when it does what it does to you. So it's almost like it connects you to that greater part of yourself, would you say?
Yes. And the more practiced people are at quieting their mind and really linking into the sound of the kirtan and really following that,
Yeah.
the more they're going to find that their experience of that connection becomes magnified. It becomes magnified the more people that are involved, just because it's like an intensified wave. You get a few drops and not much moves, but you get a whole tidal wave,
Yeah.
and it can really move things. And the same thing happens with people. You get people listening to a podcast or listening to something together in unison.
Yeah.
It changes things.
Would you say, I mean, I've asked you this before, but would you say all music is healing, no matter what form of music it is?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I see music as electricity, kind of where you could use it for positive, negative, for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I do think music can be extremely healing, but I don't think all music is. I think there can be some things that could be done for harm if you wanted to with music.
Well, that is true in some respects. I mean, I always say to people, I listen to any kind of music, right? All kind of musics. And maybe that makes me a bit strange, but I don't know. It's just, I get bored of just one type of music. Do you know what I mean? But I know what you're saying. Some of the energy of some of the R&B or rap music can be a bit low sometimes, right?
Sometimes, and not maybe even necessarily that, but how do you feel when you're listening to it, and what is it doing to you?
Yeah.
Because somebody may be vibrating at a certain level, and then they put music on, and suddenly they feel like, oh, now I'm not thinking that I don't have access to the same thoughts I had before, because they're listening to music that's changed their space and their energy.
Yeah.
And so listen to the music and notice the effect, because it all has an effect.
It does. It
and
does. Yeah.
you can lift, I mean, some music that may sound actually something like, oh my gosh, I detest that music, can't stand it. For somebody else who's at a different place, they hear that music and it lifts them up a little.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Well, I've always wanted to go to a Metallica concert. You know what I mean? Not a chance yet. But would I find that lowers my energy? Not really. Do you know what I mean? It's just an experience, isn't it? Yeah.
So you could be detached with it. Maybe.
Totally could be detached. Totally, and that's
Well,
probably
good
why
for
I listen
you.
to all sorts of music. I'm totally detached. Yeah. But do you find then when you're leading this that it's okay? Well, actually, let me ask you this: do you find that the person you are now compared to the person you were even 5 years ago, from just even doing the kirtans constantly, do you find it's constantly healing you and changing you?
It does. I don't do them as often as I used to when I did them weekly or monthly. So we space them out. We do them in different times.
Okay.
But every event is different. And I would say I feel blessed every time we have an event by the music.
But if you're going, look, you've lived life. Yeah, we all. There's no free tickets, is there? Right. So when things have been falling apart in your life, how have you kept it together when you've gone to a kirtan? Some real bad shit's going on in the background, right? Painful stuff, right? But you've made it through the kirtan, and it's really helped you, hasn't it?
It has, and I'd say band members, the music, those are all part of the healing for me. The community of people that are there, knowing that I have to step up into something when I feel I don't know how I'm going to do that because I'm in such a terrible, painful, curled up ball of mush in the back green room before it starts.
Oh gosh, right,
and then I've got to go out and I've tried to just be authentic. So if I feel pain, I go out and I just open my heart and let that be there and sing through that. And it's changed that experience of pain. There's been times where I felt different when that's been there. After the end of the kirtan, I feel like it feels different. I don't feel like I have the same amount of pain after that.
Yeah, and that probably goes for a lot of the people in the audience as well.
I would expect so.
Yeah, whatever. Even if they're there and they don't know why they're there, do you know what I mean?
Right. But most would say, when we've asked, like, how many people feel better now than when you first came, most people would say, yes, I did. I feel something changed. Something feels different and better. It's
a way to heal, isn't it? And doing this documentary, we've had people on just from doing art and art, music. They're all they're just modalities to heal. And God knows, right now, as a collective, there's some healing that needs to go on.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've spent the last year or so where I got rid of my TV. I'm boycotting some of the news, and no offense to the news crews and doing all their work, but for me, it's been really important to care about how I feel. And when I've been watching those things, I feel like I get frustrated about things I can't do. And when I observed that, I thought, the world needs a lot of healing also feels like it puts me in a place where I need to do something, or I need to get out of where it is. Right. And while I would say, yes, I can look around and see that, yes, I also see there's amazing miracles and things happening that are shifting. And some of the things that are happening now that look like disasters are because things need to shift. And things need to shift so that there's this new paradigm that's starting to come through with the way we're thinking about and understanding energy, understanding how our thoughts affect each other, understanding how we connect and are connected always to each other.
That's so true. Something just came to me, what you were just saying there was that, we can't change the world, right? This is not just my saying, this is others. This is what's come in the documentary. We can't change the world, but we can change ourselves. And by changing ourselves, we actually do a ripple out to changing the world, right? But that's what you're doing. That's what came to me. That's what you're doing. We think we've got to change things on a huge scale sometimes, and that's rubbish, right? Look at the people's lives that you have changed or continue to change by just having those in your audience, yeah? I mean, that ripples. I mean, isn't that the best thing?
That's a huge scale.
Isn't it?
It's like the story that I love about the guy walking on the beach, trying to throw the crabs back in the water. Right, and someone says, you got thousands of crabs. How are you ever going to millions? How are you ever going to get them? And he throws it back in and said, made a difference to that one.
Right, yeah, that's
I love
great.
that.
That's great. That's
like the one-on-one. And I learned a lot of that from my teacher, because when I went to him, I was in my teens. I had nothing to offer. I wasn't some star. I didn't have millions of dollars to give to his hospital building. I had nothing. But I felt like he recognized something in me that was inspiring and he was like this with everybody. He had a way of making you feel that there was validity in that connection. It was such a deep, profound connection. And it taught me when you're with somebody, you're with them. You connect to them and you do what you can while you're with them.
Absolutely, like this present moment right now. Absolutely. I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, so I'm not going to try to, right? But But, being a Brit and coming here and knowing the divide that's here right now, I think anything that we can do to help heal ourselves and everything else, it's got to be a fantastic thing. I think most things are off service, though. That's the confusion with this work. It's like, not everyone's going to start a kirtan band or do. But what your message does is inspire people to live their purpose, because now's the time to live that purpose. Yeah.
It is. And I remember a story somebody told me about Mother Teresa. I don't even know if it's true or not. And they asked her, I like it, even if it's not true, so don't tell me if it's not. Don't tell me.
It's true. It's true.
But somebody said, they asked her, what do you think of the devil? And she said, I don't have time. And I love that. I love that story because it's the same way I feel now when people said, oh, there's all these struggles going on. I know they are. And maybe I'm an ostrich putting my head in the sand, but I see such beautiful things happening. Those are the things I want to magnify. And in yoga says, everything we focus on with our mind becomes greater.
Yes.
And if we have a choice of where we're going to focus, wouldn't it make sense to focus on what we want to see get bigger?
Yes.
Rather than conflict.
Of course, absolutely. And again, just going back to, that's what you're doing. That's exactly what you do. So thank you for what you do. It's
and thank you for sharing it with the world.
It's beautiful.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And the world that actually is ready to hear it. I never say that I have a massive audience. It's the audience that's ready at this moment to hear this, and that's something in this interview that they're listening to. It's going to resonate with them, or at least give them a kick to say, oh, maybe I should be looking at doing this, or maybe I should be, even just listen to your music or whatever it may be. Something in their life that's just going to.
That's
right
the
now.
Beautiful thing about having all these non-physical ones around us, is that whenever we set the intention and we decide we're going to do it, you can see the signs around that start to show up. So like you said in this interview, there'll be some little gem or little thread that somebody goes, that was it. That was what I was missing. That's the answer. That's what I was looking for.
Yes.
And then they go somewhere else and they turn the radio on in their car, and then there's a song that has the rest of the answer there, like reinforcing that we are not alone here. We're here with lots that are physical and many, many, many that are non-physical.
What has your spiritual truth taught you nowadays? Well, not taught you, but it must have expanded. That's the kind of word I want to use. Your spiritual truth has expanded, to such a degree, hasn't it, from doing the kirtan?
It has, and not just the kirtan, but the yoga. And for me, it's all intertwined, in what I say is a way of life, as opposed to I do kirtan. It's sort of like just part of everything that is with me.
Yeah.
And it has, that, and having discussions with people that I'm connected to. I think, I think about things in a bigger way than I used to when I was younger, where I felt I was leading the kirtan and people were coming to participate. It feels very much now like I'm aware that the thoughts I'm having during the kirtan and the things that I'm connecting to can be magnified because of what's going on with the energy.
Yep.
And so I try to use that time and use that energy as best I can to send it out to people or to connect people or draw them in, because I know when I send a thought out, it's going to them. It's not some new age thing that,
not. It
the thoughts just go out there.
It really works.
It really works, and our cell phones prove it. You send a little thing out with your cell phone, it goes through the air, and it lands right in somebody else's cell phone, and that's
it's just so true. When you're thinking of
amazing.
someone, or you concentrate your thought on something that you want, whether it's a person or whatever, right? And as long as it's coming from love, right? And there's a loving reason to want to do that, right? A passionate love for it, I think. My God, it really works, and it's amazing what comes off that.
It is.
And people say, "Oh, I was just thinking about you." Well, guess what? I was thinking about you.
Right.
Yeah.
So I played this little game for a while in my life where whenever I would think of someone, it would come through my mind, I would try to differentiate, was that a thought that I had, or was that a thought that came from them?
Right.
And the difference that I was able to tease out a little bit is if it was a thought I had, there was usually a train of thoughts that would lead to it. Like, oh, I was in the car driving, I went to such and such a place. I remember being there with my friend. Oh, I'm thinking of my friend. Versus I'm going about my business and boom, there's my friend and I'm thinking of my friend. And so when that happens, I immediately now think, oh, they must be thinking of me, and I'll reconnect in my mind to, going back, like, I wonder what they need. Or sometimes I'll call them just to surprise them and say, I was just thinking of you.
Well, then, we've talked a lot about present moment here as well, as we're getting a bit into deeper subjects now. What do you think much of the future and the work that you're going to do with the albums, the new albums, and where you'd like to take this work? Are you just very much, no, I'm here right now, that's just where I'm going to stay?
Oh, I'm always thinking about the future, though. I've got a little fire in me. So, I'm making plans and doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel, this is interesting you asked that. I feel like there's a paradigm shift happening in me for what this music is doing. So far, the albums that people release, it's been kind of like a as a musician, you play music live and you release albums and people listen to them, they write to you, do more albums, blah, blah, blah. It goes like that.
Yeah.
I feel, even with concerts, I feel like, and this is something I shared with Courtney,
Yeah.
that there's something that's a new paradigm that's going to evolve or emerge around the music and how it's connecting people and how it's created, produced, and becomes part of something that shifts paradigms for people.
Right.
I don't quite know what that is, but I can feel it when I'm producing a song. I can almost feel what it's going to offer then when someone listens to it. Just like when you hear a song, you say, oh, that gives me a feeling of something.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to aim that music in a particular direction and see, can we have an effect and create a bigger momentum with this?
I mean, okay, thank you for that. And you always had a fascination with India as well.
I did.
There's a reason we're going here, right? And do you feel that there's some aspect of you inside you that's you're tuning into, that's from a past life or a life that's being lived right now in some other dimension, there's something about you, I feel, that's almost like you've done this before but differently, or not. Let's not get into just like living this life again, but I mean there is a past life aspect of you, like a guru.
There is definitely a past life aspect.
Without the guru complex right now. That's what I'm trying to
right.
pull it into.
We're in hiding right now.
Yeah, good,
It's a
good,
recessive
good.
guru.
Yeah. The recessive guru. Yeah, I love it.
So, yeah, when I first went to India, I remember we went to, there was a temple in Vrindavan, and I was with a woman who, we had a driver in the front seat, and we drove down a street, and I had a flash, and I said, I know where the street goes.
Right.
And there's a building around the corner. The woman in the front seat looked at me. I said, if you go down, you take a left, there's going to be a mango grove there. And there's going to be a white building with these square windows with brick like painted white over it. And she looked at me and she looked at the driver and said, let's go. And we drove there and I said, turn left. And sure enough, we turned left and there's this mango grove. But the mango grove I thought was so interesting. It looked really different than what I had seen. It was old. It looked like it was run down. It was like, it wasn't the fresh young little mangoes I was thinking in my head. And the building looked older too than I remembered. So I wondered initially, was it because there was a spirit that saw it and then came and told me? But then if that was the case, why did it look older when I saw it now? And it made me think it must have been another time or another life that I had been there to see that or walk through that. It's like I remembered walking through that mango grove sometime. Whether it was in spirit or in body, I don't know.
Why do you think you're doing this work?
The Kirtan? I feel it's a way of creating portals for people to experience a transformation. And I feel for me, it's a way of remembering where I left off and taking me back to a place that I've come back to re-experience and go through again.
See, that's what came in the documentary. Do you feel that you channel when you do some of this work?
I do. I mean, I don't know if it would be possible not to do that. If I think of the Kirtan, the first time I sat and sang, I felt like I was in another lifetime. I remember going up in the attic and just singing even. Wow. And I saw the sun, and I was in this attic and it was hot and I sat there and I could see myself almost as somebody that looked like an Indian woman. I was smaller and I was sitting there and I was in this field and I thought, this just brought me into another place, the sound, and I could hear somebody calling out in the distance. I could never hear who it was, but I could hear something. And it haunted me not haunted like in a scary way, but it came back again and again and left an impression in me.
Left an impression, yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you're in front of an audience then, you're kind of in and out of some sort of trancey type of state sometimes.
It's definitely, I wouldn't call it a trance. Feels like I'm going less conscious. I guess I would differentiate it. It feels like it's almost an expanded consciousness where I feel like I become aware of more than just the room and me. And sometimes I felt like I was above myself looking down.
Wow.
and seeing all the people doing it. And it felt like I was there longer than the time actually happened, because when I'm singing a chant, I was there and then I was back watching it. Mm-hmm. It felt like a longer time, and then suddenly I'm back in singing again. So,
have you ever tried to enter that space without the kirtan?
This
out of body space.
It's happened before in meditation, where I've been sitting and I feel like I'm then behind myself watching myself meditate. I've been in that place.
But this part of you that's kind of coming through, if you, because I think everyone channels, and I think all musicians do channel in a way. But this part of you that channels, I recognized it on the documentary. I recognized when you were channeling on the documentary. You said to me,
and I knew you knew it.
I
saw it.
My God,
I saw it in your face. I was like, there it is.
Hang on. Yeah,
There it is.
And it came through, and then it said you basically started talking about that you've lived this life before, that you've come back to experience it in a different way, and that no way is not important. That no way, every way is important. You didn't say it like that, but it's every experience is unique. That's kind of what you said, and I was like, what the hell? Where did that come from?
And then you asked me if I had shared that before ever with anybody.
That was insane, because that's what's been coming out on the documentary as we first started this conversation off. The idea that we've lived this life many times before. And you felt that you had come back here now, personifying your words here, hope we do a good job, and it was kind of an important time right now. This was important what you were doing. It was important enough to re-remember. And the thing with re-remembering that you'd lived this before was due to the high state that you enter in as well when you go into the Kirtan. But it was more like there was another version of you coming through. Something else was popping through there. Do you ever get to talk to that part of you sometimes?
The other part?
Yeah.
I think there's more than one. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see it in pictures. I'll see it in the mirror, or I'll feel it when I'm sitting and something reminds me of it, and then I'm suddenly back in that place.
Wow. And is it helpful to you? Is it always help? Does it always
depends.
progress you?
I think it's a curiosity for me sometimes, like, oh, who is that? Or what is that I felt? I remember seeing her in a shadow, my shadow, when I was younger, and I drew her portrait, and she was beautiful. I have her portrait. I could somewhere somewhere here. I don't know if I have it here or in my storage, but I could send you a copy if I can find it. I kept it to myself for a long time. I didn't show it to anybody. But I saw her in my shadow, and actually in the shadow, I saw her stand up and face me, and she said, "I'm you." And then I realized, holy cow, that's who all this time I had been seeing. And when I was younger, and I felt her come, and I hadn't seen her face, and all these things were happening where I almost couldn't move. I wasn't ambulatory because I felt the moment I'd move, like something would shift, and I was in this altered state, walking around my house, and my mom was trying to send me to a psychologist, thinking something was wrong. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm like super, like, everything was talking to me. The bird was responding. When I would call out, something would fly towards me, and it was like I was in a whole nother world.
Wow.
And when that happened, it felt like that's when I realized there was something more than just me. But at the same time, I had to go through school, and I was in grade school. So I said to her, I can't have you keep coming back, because if you do, I'll never finish school. I'll be off doing this with you, and I'll never finish school.
Have you ever invited her back?
I have.
Right. And is that helpful for you, that she's there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been times where I don't even I was in Chicago, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was soot that actually had come out of my nose. Like, where do these things happen, and I had done this little prayer before I went to bed, and I thought, well, isn't this interesting? So many stories. I've journals of stuff that. And
you obviously got some maybe contract with her, or there's some sort of agreement maybe, or it's this better part, it's this most purest part of you. It is you in a sense. We could try to call it separate, but maybe it's not.
I feel like she said she was me, and I feel that, and I feel she's the part of me that is the truest part of me, with everything there.
Yes.
And she didn't have the same buoyancy or laughter or goofiness that I have.
Yes.
She was just really solid, though. It was unbelievable. I felt she knew everything. It was unbelievable.
I wonder if you're bringing her out in your kirtans. I wonder if this is coming through.
I definitely feel that energy there many times. I feel it when I work with clients times, or when I do distant work, I feel that.
Oh, yes, of course. And we all have this, don't we? We all have this part of us. That's where this all comes down to. Yeah. And to call upon it, it's just there. You just have to believe in it, in a sense. and know that when your best parts come through, it's this greatest part. We are a soul. I always say we're a soul having a human experience, and soul is not even the right word for it. We are love having a human experience, because the way you ended the documentary, you did say that love is the only answer in any moment.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I was so surprised when that came through as well, because that's what's been coming through on the documentary. So you kind of rounded off really nice. If we're just going to edit it down to some really, pinnacle points in there. I mean, I know we're almost out of time here, and I don't really want to end this, but it's very interesting exploring that part of you. And is that the progression of your work? Are you able then to work with this side of you, then to progress your work even further?
Well, that's the goal. I would say it's a goal, because up to this point, it's been, I've had a world where it's been all the spirit and all those things there, and it's only been the last 10 years or so that I've even brought the Kirtan more to let me out doing that in terms of telling stories or sharing more of who I am.
Right.
And so for me, it's a coming back to who I am, which is where I started from when I came here, to try to find my way back to that.
And do you think if more musicians would be open to this, they'd realize that they can even further their music even more by... do you think some of the really great musicians actually secretively allow this side to come through?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
never talk about it, though.
They may not talk about it, or they may not have words except to say there's something there that's really, they can feel it. There's something that happens when that creative process clicks, and they're lined up with themselves, or lined up and it feels good and they're spot on. Yeah. There's something else that happens.
I really hope you do, with free will, work with that and progress that side of you.
Thank you.
Because I think that's the evolution for your work. And I just think it's, it's so important what you're doing. And if we have lived this life before, then, you're definitely doing a good job right now. Obviously, in ways that we won't know what's different, you know what I mean? But the world needs more Kirtan. And if that's what your work does to help people find their passion for doing it, or whatever it may be, that's a beautiful thing. And just spreading that love around just where you live, and that we can all do that in our own ways, can't we, in our communities? Right.
And as we're touched by it, then we share it with others, because it inspires us.
Absolutely. Well, what is the most important message you could give us right now?
It's always going to be the same. The bottom line is always love. That's what it returns to. It's what we came out of. It's where it started. Every transformation that's ever taken place has been that unconditional love that has been at the source of that transformation, even in pain. And I really believe that even in those worst times, that there is something driving us through, because the soul knows, the spirit knows, that bigger part of us knows we're here. We're here for love, and we're here to find our way back to that and become that, to embody it.
Well, Ragani, just thank you so much for being with us today. Much love to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.